All right, so Blake, welcome to the first inaugural episode of the Card Press.
Thank you.
Very nice to
Thank
meet you, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise.
So, as we were talking before, this is something that I wanted to do and talk to different artists, people that were involved in doing a lot of sports card art, trading card art, sketch cards, things like that. So my hope is to talk to a few of the artists that have been involved in Project 2020. That'd be great. I'm also a designer, graphic designer, and so I'm really interested in people who are designing cards and working on current modern stuff now. I'm a collector, so I love the vintage stuff, but the modern stuff is so cool, and the printing techniques that they use now it's unbelievable. But the art side, I'm really interested to talk to some of the artists about your thought process and materials and things that go into your day to day as you're working on projects like this. So I've seen lots of videos of you, so I've got a pretty good background. But can you talk a little bit just about how you got into art? I know you were in marketing for a period of time, but why and how did you make the jump to an artist? Because that's totally different.
Yeah, of course. I grew up in a very creative household. My parents are both creative in their own right and always were encouraging me to create things, and I really enjoyed doing it. And so I did it kind of as a hobby and just like growing up as a kid. But when it came time to go to school, despite my parents actually encouraging me to study art or something tangential to art, like art history, I just decided to go a totally different direction. So I studied economics and ended up getting into marketing kind of right out of college. And that, honestly, it fulfilled enough creative stimulus for a while. I wore a lot of hats when you do digital marketing. It's some graphic design, some video editing, some copywriting.
Yep.
And so that was cool. And it was pretty solid. It was like when when social media was really taking off and businesses were starting to actually invest in social media marketing and digital marketing. So it was treating me well, but ultimately on my 30th birthday, I decided that I wanted to not, like, the thing is, I'd gotten to a point where I was looking forward to Fridays and dreading Mondays. And so
midlife crisis at 30?
Yeah, I don't know. It just seemed like there had to be something more that would keep me fired up every single day.
Yeah.
So I left that job, and it wasn't necessarily like knowing I'm going to quit this job and instead I'm going to paint. It was that I'm going to quit the job or career and just find something that makes me happy. And that kind of brought me to art pretty quickly because, like I said, I grew up doing it. And so, yeah, it was about 6 years ago. I just turned 36 this week. So exactly 6 years ago, basically, I quit my job. And, shortly thereafter, started painting full time. So it's crazy to think how much has happened in the last 6 years. It's been a really fun journey to get to now doing the baseball card stuff.
Yep.
I also grew up collecting baseball cards with my dad and going to games, and so it's wild, man.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. It's weird, but I think it probably gave you a good background because, being an artist, marketing is key. You can sit in a room all day and paint, but boy, if somebody's not out there, knocking on doors for you and there's a whole selling and marketing side to art that goes way beyond just the production of it. So it sounds like you had a good background. You probably had a leg up on a lot of artists that kick around for probably 6 to 10 years just trying to figure that out.
Yeah. I think I look back and I didn't get any formal training for art, but I got training that's really relevant to art, like you said. So I think that the marketing aspect is something that a lot of artists, some artists struggle with. And so having that, being very comfortable promoting my work online and knowing how to kind of leverage social media.
Yep. Yeah, and I think you've it's one of the reasons why I reached out to you, because you're so heavily on social media and your YouTube channel has done so well, and you're obviously comfortable with all that. it's been fun to kind of watch you interview some of the other artists, and you can kind of tell when the ones that have done it, and the ones who haven't done as much of it. And I've kind of noticed you giving some pointers and some tips, and some people have followed some of the things that you've been doing, which I think has been good, because I like supporting artists, and I think this movement is really been kind of fun to watch. I started looking at sketch cards and things like that, but it was always like, we did a project, redid the logo for Gen Con, and would have people, being in Indianapolis, Comic-Con would come and we'd go or whatever. And it's crazy. You see all the artists that are pumping out all that work, and it's really cool. But me, I'm just a sports nut. So, I look at it and think, from an art side, it's awesome. I love it. But I'm like, I'd rather look at, King Griffey Jr. crap all day and stuff like that. So I think this has really been fun because, Project 2020 has just opened up a whole new world to people, collectors. I mean, I've been a collector my whole life. And so, I've always been involved in that. And art was sort of a separate thing, although I always gravitated towards sports, themes and stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit about how, when you started, did you already know, because I know you've done lots of art for athletes and things like that. So did you immediately gravitate towards sports, and that was your subject matter, or did that just kind of happen?
It was a lucky coincidence, I guess. Right place, right time. So when I started painting full time, part of like the marketer in me knew that I needed to find a niche and focus on kind of one group, a target audience, to make paintings for. And so at first it was actually because I had come from digital marketing, and kind of that was my wheelhouse of my contacts. I pivoted to say, okay, I'm just going to make art for offices, and my focus was like that. So if the startup was moving out of a co-working space into their own workspace and want to deck out the walls with some cool art, that was my target market. Did that to moderate success, especially for just starting out as an artist. And in that process, while I was dropping off art to a client in Las Vegas, I met this guy who was a sports agent, and he had played in the NFL, and now actually he's a manager, not an agent. But his name is Jared Faison, and I just really hit it off, and he liked my work and kind of helped me break into the professional sports space, starting with NFL players.
Yep.
And really, just to be totally transparent for other artists too, is those first, essentially what we came up with was I was going to do 3 free paintings for his 3 top clients, and they were going to promote it on social media and share it with their teammates. And essentially the idea was that if people see it, then maybe their teammates want to buy it. Right. And so it works extremely well. And I continuously did kind of that strategic gifting as part of building a name for myself in the sports world, breaking into a new team. And so kind of through that, I've been able to work with some of the really big names in football, but it was definitely working your way up and doing a lot of free work along the way to get noticed,
Yep. Awesome. Awesome. So you've always been happy to stay in that realm, then, it sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, I think the sports niche is perfect. Like I said, I grew up collecting baseball cards, watching sports, played lacrosse in college, and it's a lot of fun. And then if you look at also pro athletes have a lot of disposable income, so potentially they can afford art with the luxury price tag.
Yep.
Number 2, they're just super competitive with each other. So one guy gets one, the next guy wants a big one. And then the icing on the cake is there's so many photos online of them doing amazing things.
Yep.
There's no shortage of subject matter.
Yep.
So it's the perfect storm.
Yeah. So this is going way back, but I know when I got out of school and I was doing a lot of illustrating and a lot of painting and things. So I you probably don't remember them, but there's these things called the directories, and so illustrators would pay to have a page in this giant book, and people would call you for commissions and work and stuff. And so I had done lots of art, but I had one of Michael Jordan, and it was just a portrait. And I thought it was pretty cool one day because I got a letter from his agent, saying, cease and desist using that likeness, and that was pretty neat. But it made me want to go off and really try to figure out, okay, what are licensing deals, and what are trademark rules, and what can you do, and what's fine art versus commercial art, and things like that. So how did you tread into that, or did you worry about it? Did you just kind of take off? I know anymore it's like with a lot of things, it's like, just do it until someone tells you you can't.
Yeah, I'm all for, asking for forgiveness instead of permission. I think that I think it takes a lot to like get the notice of somebody coming after you for an image. And I do know that Michael Jordan's team is very aggressive about that.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like the work that I was doing, breaking into the sports stuff, like doing a one-of-one painting that is then given to the player. I never had any copyright issues from NFL, from team, from the photographer, from anyone. Now it'd be different if I just took someone's photo and I started making my own baseball cards, for example, or made produced like prints. Like if I have a Michael Jordan painting too, and if I was doing like prints mass produced of that, I guarantee his people would shut it down, real quick.
Yep.
So as long as you're doing like one-of-one works, you really don't have to worry about too much. Once you start wanting to replicate it and duplicate and make editions and stuff, then you have to worry about licensing. And there's a few parties involved for sports. There's the league itself, the team, and then the individual player. And so, it's just you can get individual licenses. So like I just did a project with Nolan Ryan, Bo Jackson, and Magic Johnson, 3 portraits. And then we're gonna make prints. They're gonna sign the prints, and then we're gonna sell those, as limited edition signed prints.
Awesome. Yep.
And so for that, I had to get the players involved, and really like there was a third party person who kind of connected us and made this happen. He already had those relationships and had them like ready to go.
Yeah.
So he came to me, and then we still have to figure out, okay, now we need to choose images and get licensed to those images. So Getty Images is a fantastic source for sports images. That's what Topps uses.
Yep.
I think it's not cheap, but essentially I messaged them, and because what I wanted from them was basically a custom license. It wasn't just like I'm writing an article about Nolan Ryan, I want to use this old picture of him in it.
Yeah.
That's totally different than me saying, okay, I'm going to paint this, and then I'm going to sell it as a paint.
Yeah.
So they basically put together a custom quote to get a license for those 3 images, and it like also limits, like we can only make up to 250 prints. Yep. If we go over that, we'd have to pay for additional license and stuff. Yep. So that's kind of interesting, like dealing with it on my own. Obviously before this, last year, dealing with Topps already has the license, right. Worries about all that stuff. So like the only thing that would impact me is like if I submit I submit cards as an artist, then they have to go to MLB and say, this is what we're going to use. And sometimes MLB will push back on stuff that Topps would have said, okay, I'm cool with that. But MLB says no,
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. You were talking with, was it Ted with Topps?
Jeff.
He was talking about, someone had asked a question about, well, why wasn't Mantle in Project 2020? And well, we didn't have the license for that. So that was an interesting conversation to throw into the mix on how you choose the 20, cards and 20 players that you're gonna use.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they just announced, this was this morning, Project 70, which is a new format from Project 2020, but the same in the sense of collaborating with a ton of artists. And almost every single Project 2020 artist is coming back, and they're adding a bunch more. And so that's super exciting. And that one is different because they're actually letting us choose all of our subject list. Wow. And all of our it's 70th anniversary is Project 70. And so like they're just want to kind of commemorate 70 years of cards. So we kind of have to make cards that are inspired by different decades throughout the 70 years.
Yep.
But they gave us a lot of freedom, and we get to choose the players, and then we go to Getty Images and we get to choose our images too. So it's really freaking cool. It's going to be wild.
Yeah, a couple artists released that today or throw that up on Instagram. Coming soon, Project 70. So that was one of my questions to ask you. So that's
no, it's going to be really great.
Awesome. So speaking of new projects, so I think was it yesterday, Wave 2 came out on 1951. So got that. So with that, that was they come to you, and that's following a predetermined sort of design. So your artwork's going to fit within that design. Is that kind of how it worked? Did they say, hey, we're looking for this portrait work? Here's the design. Here's where your artwork's going to go, and you were able to utilize that to kind of figure out the plan for production?
Kind of. It was a little bit more. So when Project 2020 started becoming more successful than anybody kind of anticipated, Tops and I started discussing like future projects of working together, and it was spitballing ideas for months sometimes, and it wasn't like continuous, but like we just have an email thread going back and forth of like, oh, what about a set that's like this, or what about this idea, and ultimately we kind of settled on the 1951 kind of remix, because 1951 was the first year that Topps had the MLB license. It's exactly 70 years ago now. And so the original cards looked just like that. So they looked almost like playing cards. I have like one here, and then they had some parallels with different color backs. So Topps, I designed a new back, which is kind of fun. As far as the front, Topps gave me a lot of freedom to say, hey, if you want to mess with this, you can. I just thought that it's such a classic looking design that I kind of wanted to keep a lot of the elements from the original card.
Yep. Now it's one of my favorite designs from Topps for sure. So I think that was really cool to see.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So what you painted on board for those? Did I see you had triangles, and you actually painted on the diamonds or squares, but you painted them on the diamond. What material were you using for that?
So it's like 1/8 of an inch birch. And so I bought, because I was thinking like, I had to make 52 paintings for that, which is more work than I've ever produced for like a single body of work or a single project. Yep. And so I was thinking about like long-term like storage, especially because I just moved to a new studio, and so I had to move everything, and just thinking about moving 50 more paintings is crazy. So came up with the idea of doing these small 12-inch by 12-inch tiles, like I said, that are birch. Bought them in like 50 packs, and primed them and painted on them, and they worked really well, I think. And now they're just all stacked. It's like the whole set fits in like a 12-inch cube practically.
Yep. You carry them around in a case.
Get
a custom case for them, and
it's pretty cool. Maybe big fun project. And
submit those to PSA. Maybe they'll put them in a case.
Yeah. I pretty much spent the entire month of December completing those 52 works, and I was kind of batching the work in stages, and then at the same time trying to balance other art projects, commissions. Holidays are always a busy time, but it was a fun month and an exhausting month, and now I'm excited because now I can kind of breathe a little bit more and
get the fun and excitement of it being released and start to get into people's hands and things. It's probably hard to work on things knowing you can't show that stuff while you're working on it, so can't break until they're ready to release it. So now you can.
Exactly. I have my first card for Project 70 is being worked on right now, but can't spoil that one yet.
Cool.
But that was due February 1st. So
can't wait to see it. So one thing that I wasn't familiar with, but I just kind of came across, was companion cards for Project 2020. How did those get released, or what are those exactly?
So all companion cards are just produced and shipped or whatever by the artist, and it's up to them if they want to do it.
Okay.
I don't know which artist first made the first companion card, but I haven't made any, and I am still undecided if I'm going to make any for Project 2020. I don't.
Yep.
At this point now that like Project 70 is coming out, 1951's live now, like I probably don't think it's necessary.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean they're extra cards, and so like you're not supposed to use like stuff that uh, is licensed, right? Like you can't use like another photo of Jackie Robinson, but
Yeah.
people drew, F. Dot drew his blob guy, which is his own intellectual property, and
Yep.
did it in team colors. So I think it's really cool. It's awesome to see. I just think that for me, I think the time has probably passed on the companions, and I'm just going to move forward on future projects.
Well, you did a really good job, I think, with your sign stuff and some things that some of the other artists didn't do or
Right.
definitely didn't do from the get-go. They might have they kind of came in at the end, I think, some of them, and were starting to do that. But yeah, you did a really good job, I think, with hyping the sign stuff and getting that out, and had a pretty big following around that stuff.
Totally.
So yeah, I think that was your companion cards. Sort of.
Exactly.
So besides all the top stuff, like with just, I mean, like you said, with holidays and things, I mean, you're probably trying to still keep up with just creating art. So what other kinds of stuff are you doing?
So one of the things that I want to do this year is push myself into some new mediums, and so something that my housemate, who's also an artist, and my accountant Andy and I have been experimenting with is silk screening.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we're dabbling in some digital art for like the blockchain for crypto art, which is super fun. That's on Super Rare. Andy just got back one of his art pieces. He had a piece of like neon mounted to it, and so we're just we're looking at alternative things that will take our art to a new level and challenge us to learn new things. So that's educational focus this year.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I think that's a lot of what interests me about this card art is some of the artists who are, they're doing handmade analog stuff, and then some of the artists are more designers, and they're definitely doing computer or digital art, and there's a combination of some, which I think is really fun too, which is a lot of the kind of stuff that I'm working with now is trying to combine some hand done stuff with some of the digital stuff. So
Awesome.
yeah, I think there's a lot of room to grow there and to learn. So I'm just now I'm pretty good at been working in Illustrator and Photoshop a long time, so I'm pretty good. But Procreate and things like that, I'm just getting started.
Yeah, me too, man. I just got an iPad recently. I really need to spend more time using it.
I know.
Yeah.
I gotta watch less Blake Jamieson videos and spend more time on my iPad and Procreate and watch those videos.
I multitask.
Anything else really with collecting or sports cards that you can add to the discussion? I could talk all day about the production side and stuff and getting into that, but
I mean, it's not, something else that we hadn't really touched on that you kind of alluded to in the beginning was more of like the sketch cards and the one-of-one stuff and kind of card art. And so that was also cool where it was something I started doing last year after Project 2020, splatter painting on cards. And then at first I was just giving them away to people that watch my YouTube videos. I just put it in a plain white envelope and mailed them, a fun little thing. But it was really popular and kind of took on a life of its own. And there's so many artists, talented artists that are doing crazy one-of-one cards. And so Tony and I, Tony was my publicist and kind of a partner for Project 2020 on the business side of things. And so he and I decided to launch cardart.com. And so we've been I have some stuff on there, and then we also host other artists and give them kind of a platform to, share their art with the world. Cool. So definitely I think the card art thing's worth noting and people can check out. Also good for artists. We're always taking new artist submissions.
Yep. Awesome. Yeah, I've been working on some things, just doing some design stuff got a
Oh,
kind of
sick.
series of fine art
Nice.
play with
Yeah,
players. So
that's awesome.
there's a group of those, and then messing with putting some silver leaf and stuff on color on cards.
Nice. That's dope. That looks really
Yeah,
cool.
trying to play with some stuff like that. Combination, like I said, of hand done stuff and some digital stuff too.
Right, right.
So yeah, I think
I love it.
that's really fun. The odd part that I think, or the interesting part, like when you've talked to some of the other artists, is when somebody's doing something like 30 by 40, and then somebody else is working 2.5 by 3.5, which is crazy different. I mean, and the time
Wow.
that it takes, because the bigger you go, the more time it takes generally. I mean, in a lot of
Yeah.
ways, but yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's
I actually, and it's funny you mentioned that size because that's the size I decided to do for my Project 70. So like I had just, and it's like kind of going on the second, like in one hand, like I do the 52 and I'm like, all right, I got to do these as small as possible and make them compact. And then
right.
I finish that. I'm like, okay, next thing I need to do like some statement pieces. So
Yeah.
everything's going to be 30 by 40, which is, I'm very excited about.
Oh yeah, well, those will look good in the gallery show.
Exactly.
So very cool.
Exactly.
So and you're in New York, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Brooklyn.
So how'd you end up? You came from the West Coast, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Why
man.
did
It's
you
just,
end up in New York?
New York is somewhere I've always wanted to live. And my girlfriend at the time felt the same way, and we kind of were just leases were ending, and we just decided it just made sense. And it's been overall a really positive thing, I think, for my career. It's fun to say I was an artist in New York.
Absolutely.
I think I'm a Cali kid at heart. And yeah, eventually, I'll probably end up back on the West Coast or be bi-coastal because
Yeah.
I do like it. I like it over here, but I also like West Coast vibes are just different.
Yep. Yep. Everything going okay right now in New York? Everybody hanging together?
Yeah, it's been good, man.
Good. Good.
Cool. Yeah.
Well, listen, I appreciate your time. I appreciate everything that you've been doing and all uh, the willingness you've had to share things with people. So I think that's great. People can learn, other artists can see, and collectors can get into the art side of things, which I think is really good. And I think it's going to continue and be a big thing for the next few years. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks, man. Thanks
All
for having
right. Listen, I look forward to talking to you later, and take care. And we'll look forward to Project 70.
me. Yeah, for sure, man. Take
All
it
right.
easy.
Thanks, Blake.
Bye.